cultivate those habits and develop them as actual habits rather than as one-off things that we do to bank some self-care time. But how do we find the balance there and make it all fit? That is our special topic of today. But if you're new around here, we do a lot more than that on this show. So we also go through the latest music teacher news. We look at what exciting stuff is coming up soon for us as music teachers. We do web reviews of a couple of people's sites so that we can learn about marketing through that process. And then we also have an AMA, an Ask Me Anything section at the very end. So if you are watching live, then you can definitely ask a question at any stage and I will get back to it at the end on any topic. If it's relevant to the discussion, I try to answer it as we go through. But if you have a random question you need answered about your business, about your teaching, about anything, dogs, I don't know, whatever, you can type it in the chat at any stage. Just type the word question. Please do it in all caps because it helps me to find it more easily. And if you're watching on the replay, feel free to type in a question and I will answer it in the comments as well. So this is the weekly show for you if you're a music teacher who wants to teach more creatively and have more fun while doing it. My name's Nicola Canton. If we haven't met yet, I am the creator of Vibrant Music Teaching, where we balance life with making beautiful music with the next generation, with other musicians, and fostering that lifelong love of music in our students. So if you are new here, let us know in the chat. We are a very, very friendly bunch, so let us know where you're joining us from and what you need to learn about habit building today. We're going to dive into the latest music teacher news. Alright, so first my personal update. The last week for me has been a lot of interviews with potential people who might be joining the Vibrant Music team, and I'm really excited about that. It's conducting interviews is a lot of work, of course, but it's also just really fun because I'm always meeting with teachers. Since we tried to hire teachers first on our team wherever we possibly can, it means a lot of meetings with teachers like you, and it's always fun to chat and talk shop and sometimes get off topic a little bit while doing these interviews. So that's been a pleasure, and I've more of that coming up this week. The other thing I've been doing, like Corey, I'm getting ready for a concert, a recital of sorts. It's going to be on this Sunday. It's not to the public, you guys can't watch this one, this is just for my students, but I've been getting in the videos from them. It's our special musical mashup concert, so it's going to be all pieces that they've learnt by ear that have been requested by members of their family and friends, and then they've mashed them together. So it'll be like a piece that's their mum's favourite, plus a piece that's their granny's favourite, plus their best friend's favourite Taylor Swift song, and then we mash them together into one medley. And it's been really a big project for us in the studio, and really fun, really enriching for the students, and something totally different really. I mean, we've done playing by ear before, but not to this extent, so certainly I'll be sharing more about that when it's all wrapped up if you want to do something similar. But the concert is on this Sunday, so I've been prepping for that, and I have lots more ahead of me this week to get us all ready for that show that I'll be putting on this Sunday for all the students and their parents. We also published an article though on the Colourful Keys blog, so if you haven't seen that yet, it is more stuff about habits to go along with this show right here, and it is called 3 Heroic Habits for Music Teachers, so you can check that out over on the Colourful Keys blog. If you haven't seen the blog before, you can go to colourfulkeys.com to get there really quickly. By the way, on the blog front, you may have noticed one other thing that I did last week, which was I changed the blog's theme. You may or may not have noticed. I know you're on a lot of websites, but next time you're over there, have a look. It's got a fresh lick of paint, and it's some of the structure has changed as well as how it looks. So I hope you enjoy the new look and feel over there, and that it helps you find what you need even quicker than you were before on the blog side of things. The membership is still as it is and organized the same way. Then around the webs, one really fun article that I wanted to mention came from Joy Moran. So Joy Moran, for those of you who aren't familiar, oh my gosh, where have you been? Joy has been blogging since long before me. I don't know when she started, but I must check that someday. She's one of the original piano teacher bloggers that's still going, and she's colorinmypiano.com. So that's color without the U, unlike me. So colorinmypiano.com. Anyway, Joy has moved recently and she published a studio tour. And if you're nosy like me, you might like to check it out. I certainly was poking around. I'm going to be moving my teaching space in a few months or so when our extension is complete. So I was definitely looking around and seeing which of these things do I like, what inspiration can I draw here, and it's always fun to check out other people's teaching spaces, isn't it? So definitely take a look at that on Joy's blog if you're curious as well. And then the last thing I've been doing for the last week, it's a bit of a secret. You guys want to get in on the secret? So I haven't got anywhere to send you. This is not a promotion. I don't have any details, finalized things to give out to you yet, but I wanted you to be the first to know that I'm going to be putting on an event, a virtual event. It's going to be the end of March, beginning of April. So it's the last week in March / first week in April. Which is our Easter break here in Dublin, and it is the spring break for some of you in the US. However, it's going to be in the morning in the US anyway, so it shouldn't conflict with that. So it's going to be 5 days long. It's going to be something, you can think about it kind of like a retreat for music teachers. There's going to be guests, there's going to be lots of other fun stuff. And I know everybody says this about online events, but really this is going to be quite different to anything that you've seen. It's not just a conference where you're sitting there passively consuming webinar after webinar. That can be great too, but this is something quite different. It's going to be largely based on your participation as well as just getting information. You're going to be actually participating, and it's going to help you to take action on the stuff that you're learning. So I'm really excited about how it's shaping together. It's going to be, as I said, the end of March. So I will be publishing details on that soon. Probably by the show time next week, I will have a link I can send you to. But for now, if it sounds exciting, just let me know in the chat. I would love to hear your initial thoughts and what you would love to see included, because it's still in the early stages. I've got a format, I've got it planned out, but if you have a special request that you would love to see in a live virtual event, I might be able to squeeze it in. So that's your exclusive music teacher news. More details to come soon on that. Next week here on the show, we're going to be talking about marketing. So we're switching themes. It'll be February next week. Did you know that? I had to realize that when I was putting together the notes for this show. So next week will be February. It'll be February 1st. Unless I've got my dates wrong. I do that a lot, but I'm pretty sure. And we're going to be talking about marketing. All next month is actually about adult students, older beginners and adult students. And so this is going to be about marketing specifically to adult students, as well as marketing more generally in 2021. What is that? So marketing your music lessons in 2021. And yeah, so it's a complete switch. We've been talking about productivity and habits and all that stuff all this month, so it's going to be quite a different sort of a theme. And as I said, all next month is about adults. So if you're excited about that topic, we're going to have lots of stuff on teaching adult students. I know this time of year, even in pandemic times, but always this time of year is really when I get a lot of adult students starting. Maybe it's the same for you. And so it's a great time to be thinking about how we engage with our adult students and maximize their enjoyment from lessons, what they get out of it, and the likelihood that they'll join our studio as well. So that's going to be next week. And next month in general is all about adults, as I said. So our next masterclass is in February, and that is going to be called From Teacher to Coach, How to Work with Adult Students. So that's going to be coming up, and I'll have details and a link for you to sign up. That's going to be a free masterclass for everyone. However, the replay for that will be a limited time, and then after that it'll be just in the membership. And we will have a member huddle, the first one ever, so you're going to discover what that's about next month as well, to follow on from that masterclass and help you put it into action. Okay, so those are your sneak peeks. I don't know of any other events coming up except MTNA. Maybe some of you will be interested in that and have some sneak peeks to share there, but if you hear of any events going forward, do let me know. Drop me an email so that I can mention them in this segment. Make sure we all hear about all the fun stuff that's coming up, right? All right, let's go ahead and dive into our main topic, thinking about healthy habits. Okay, healthy habits. The first thing I think we need to do is some defining. So I want you to add into the chat, let me know, what does it mean to have a healthy, balanced life to you? What are some things that define that? I don't expect you to define the entire thing. I'm not saying what is your entire life design, right? I think that can lead to some unhealthy obsessions, right? Trying to define everything. But what are some broad brush strokes that mean to you that you are healthy and that your habits are in a healthy place, right? Not just that your health is at some baseline level, but what does it mean to you to have healthy habits? And in other words, what does the idea of life balance mean to you? I'm going to give you 5 different areas to consider here that I think are the foundational areas. You can disagree with me as much as you want. Please let me know in the chat if you do disagree with me. Laurie said basic human needs met. Yeah, for sure, that's part of it, right? But I think we can go beyond that. What does it mean? How can we define what healthiness means to us, healthy habits? So I'm going to talk about 5 areas. We've got number 1, which is social. What do I mean by social? I called it social because I want to go broader than family, because I feel like that can be a bit discriminatory to people who are perfectly happily living alone and in all sorts of different situations. But we are all humans, and even the most introverted of us need human connection. We need face-to-face time with people, or Zoom-to-Zoom time, if that's the case. But we need time with other people. And it can be easy to neglect this when we work for ourselves, when we are self-employed. It's really easy to let this fall by the wayside. Okay, I haven't seen my friends in a little while, or yeah, it would be nice to go to the bar, but I want to do this thing. At some point, there's a breaking point there. There's a stage when you have so little social interaction outside of work that you're not getting this basic need met, because it is a basic need. This isn't something that we can neglect. Number 2 is your health, your physical and mental health. How's that going? Let me know. How is your health right now? Many of us are struggling, and I get that. We have to prioritize our healthy habits for our health, our physical and mental health. And that mental health component, that is being talked about more and more, and I think that's a wonderful thing. It's not just about getting in our squats or eating our salads. That's part of it, and that will help us in our areas of mental health, but it's also about taking that time, as we did in Inbox Zen, taking that time outside looking at some trees. That might be part of your mental health equation. But have a think about what it means to you to be healthy. How do you feel when you are generally healthy? And what are some warning signs that that part of your life is falling out of balance? What tells you? Then we have number 3, fun. Yeah, I'm serious. I'm putting fun in my top 5 of balancing our life. If we are not having fun, and that could mean anything, right? That could mean knitting. It could mean going to a bar with friends, and it could be part of the social component. It could mean reading great novels. It could mean so many different things. But if you don't feel like you're having fun, I think something has gone wrong. Not all the time. We're not always having fun. Even I am not always having fun. There are some things we need to do that are more serious or boring or just necessary parts of life, and that's fine. But I do think that if we are not generally having fun, if we don't find the enjoyment in our life, you could think about it as enjoyment if the word fun bothers you, although I doubt you're here if that's the case. If we're not enjoying things, what's the point? Honestly, if we're not having any fun, what is the point of all of it? Number 4 is enrichment. What do I mean by enrichment? Enrichment is about your learning. You are a teacher. That means you need to be learning things to feel enriched in your life. You need to be learning new things and progressing in some area. That doesn't have to always be musical. It doesn't have to be that you are practicing new pieces and learning new things in that area. Sometimes being enriched means you take something completely outside of music or outside of teaching. Maybe it means you're learning Swahili. Fine. But you are enriching your brain. You're learning new things. And that will help towards your overall feeling of balance. And then number 5 is about fulfillment. Fulfillment, for me, is our work. And the reason our work sometimes becomes unfulfilling, well, there are many reasons it can fall out of line, right? But if we don't have healthy habits around our work, we don't have enough breaks between our students, we don't have enough time to plan our lessons, and so we're always rushed and we're not prepared. We don't have the other things in place that mean we can arrive at lessons feeling fresh and ready to take on that challenge of teaching that student. If we don't have those things, we cannot feel fulfilled by our work. Who here has had a period of time when their work was not fulfilling, when teaching was not fulfilling? I know I have. I know the first several years it wasn't particularly fulfilling, really. Not in the way I know it now. And I know I do go through days usually now, which is great, but maybe for you it's weeks, maybe it's months, that I'm not fulfilled by my teaching. And I have to take a look and say, is there something outside of my teaching that disrupted my schedule or that made it so that I didn't have the brain space to really enjoy this? Am I teaching a student I shouldn't be teaching because they don't fit in my studio? You know, their parents are pushing for exam achievements that I do not value and don't want as part of this student's musical life because I don't think it's furthering them towards this goal of lifelong musicianship. There could be many reasons, but if you're not feeling fulfilled by your work, something has gone wrong. So those 5 things, again, to help us define our life balance, life balance is the best term. I'm going to go with that. Those 5 things were social, health, fun, enrichment, and fulfillment. Social, friends and family, health, your physical and mental well-being. Fun, do you enjoy what you're doing? Do you get to have fun in your life? Enrichment, are you learning new things and bringing new creative ideas into your brain, whether that's in music or outside of it? And then fulfillment. Do you feel that level of fulfillment with your work? Let me know how you feel about these things right now. The next area I want us to think about when we consider this life balance and developing healthy habits from that are some guide rails. So the guide rails to me, let's put that up there, shall we? The guide rails to me come from this idea by Donald Miller. Does anyone know Donald Miller? He wrote Story Brand and Marketing Made Simple, and just recently Business Made Simple. Anyway, one of the things Donald Miller talks about are his 3 guiding principles, at least I think he calls them that. That's the idea. There are 3 things that he tries to keep in his life, and if one of these is off, he feels like something has gone wrong and he needs to adjust his balance. And I think this idea of having 3 simple things is really valuable, and if you do find yourself going way off kilter and having to correct so far back onto track, maybe you need to implement something like this. So Donald's 3 things are: get up early. I think the second one is write every day. And the third one is something like opening doors for people or letting other people go first, something like that. So these are simple things, and you notice they're very specific. It's very easy for him to say, did I do these or not? But each one is a symbol of something behind it. So getting up early is about his productive life, right? That's about him getting work done. And if he gets up early, he tends to do that. So that's what fits in his routine. Writing every day is important because he's a writer. And so that's his most important work. So if he's not writing, he knows he's gotten off the path he's supposed to be on, because that is his most important job. And then opening doors for people, or I think it's letting other people go first, something like that. That, I think he says it as knowing that he's not becoming a jerk or something like that. But it's about being selfless, really, is what he's saying here. It's about putting other people first, knowing that he's not becoming all ego, right? And maybe that's not relevant to you. Maybe none of those things are. But having those kind of simple guide rails, I think, is a really useful idea. Do any of you have anything like this? Can you think of 1 or 2 or 3 things that you might implement that would show you some of your core values in the world, in your routine, in your actions, that you could then reflect back to yourself and say, no, I'm not holding the doors open for people. That's showing me that I've become too egocentric or whatever. But that doesn't have to be your core value. But what is your core value, and how can it show up in such a simple way in what you do? The 4th idea is about developing. So this is where we're really going to take the habit and put it into action. So I want to hear your habits that you want to develop in the chat. Let me know. What do you want to develop as a habit right now? And then I'll help you with it. Hopefully I can help you with it. When we want to develop new habits, I think there are 3 things to keep in mind. And if you're really into getting into this, I highly suggest looking up the work of Charles Duhigg or James Clear. So that's Atomic Habits and The Power of Habit, both great books. And both of them, I'm fairly sure I listened to both on audio, so good audiobooks, because I cannot suffer poor narrators. So if I listened to them, they had good narrators. Anyway, so 3 guiding principles that I've come to understand when it comes to developing good habits. Developing any habit, even if it's a poor one, but hopefully we're doing good ones. The habit before the habit, making it easy, and really understanding the reward. Those are my 3 things. So the habit before the habit, this is the idea, the example that's often used is, if you want to work out, you put your running clothes beside the door, or you change into them before you go to sleep. Some people sleep in their running clothes so that they can just get up. They're already wearing it, it's already started, and off they go. To me, that's the habit before the habit. You see what I mean? It's the simpler idea before the bigger habit that usually feels like a big, heavy, wrought iron gate that we're pushing. Then we have make it easy. So that goes a long way to making it easy. What would it look like if it were easy, though? Well, the running example is you just have to run to the light post at the end of your road. Or you just have to walk 3 steps out of the door if that already feels like too much. So you make the habit as small and as easy as you can. Those authors, again, for those asking, were James Clear and Charles Duhigg. The books are probably easier to write down, which are Atomic Habits, Atomic, like an atom, Atomic Habits, and The Power of Habits are their two respective books. So making it easy, that is the idea of atomic habits. Small habits that build up to bigger ones. Just walking out the door is your habit. It's not running 5K, right? And then understanding the reward. What I mean by understanding the reward, often people talk about temptation bundling or reward bundling, where they say, okay, well, if I go to the gym, I get to have my favorite brownie or whatever. I don't think that's particularly helpful. Not just because the brownie will help you put back on most of the weight you lost, but because you're not understanding the intrinsic value of that thing through your reward. So what I prefer is the idea of understanding the reward that's already baked in. And we can take this back to music. The magical moment for practice for students comes when they feel the reward that practice gives them. And the reward practice gives them is not a candy bar or something that we give them. It's the feeling of working hard and getting better and feeling satisfied and proud of yourself. That's what it is. And that is the reward that's baked into the system. But you have to understand it, and you have to almost analyze it or articulate it to yourself in order to get it. So going back to the exercise example, it's about finishing that exercise and acknowledging to yourself how the adrenaline or how the endorphins feel in your system. See what I mean? Okay, so let's do some brainstorming. Who needs a habit developed? Laurie, I love that. Yes. We do not deserve treats. We do deserve to treat ourselves in some respect, but I don't think seeing it as a treat is particularly helpful. Glad you found that helpful, Carrie. Yes, Corey, love that. If you want to practice more, you put the music on the piano. First of all, you have great music that you actually want to practice. That can be part of it, right? If you want to develop that practice habit, but you don't have something that you're working on, I find that really, maybe that comes from my exam background where it was always about some specific project, but having something set out already, and maybe even on the music stand, that I know I want to work on is really valuable. Teresa, are you talking about the idea of rocks and then stones and then pebbles? I love that little analogy. In case she is, even if she isn't, that's a really interesting idea. So this feeds right into habits, which is, okay, so picture, if you're not familiar with this, picture a vase or a vase. Picture a vase and you have a pile of rocks, like this size, and you have medium-sized stones, and then you have sand. So, if you put in the sand first, it's sitting in the bottom of the vase, and then you put in the small pebbles, and then you put in the stones, the rocks on top, everything won't fit. But if you put in the rocks, and then the little pebbles, and then the sand will pour in and fill the cavities between the rocks. So the idea here is the big stuff matters first. You have to set aside your rocks, your things that have to get done today or this month or this quarter or whatever, so that the sand can fill in afterwards, rather than letting your day get filled up with all these tiny little messages and emails and fixing little numbers on invoices and all this stuff. That's the sand. So Teresa was talking about keep up big rock planning and following the plan. Yes. So your habit before the habit, Teresa, is maybe you need to write those rocks into a notebook, Or maybe you already do that part, and your habit before the habit is that you have to open it as your first item every day. Or maybe your habit before that habit is you have to put that notebook on top of your coffee machine so that when you get up in the morning and go to make your coffee, you have to pick it up and move it off your coffee machine and it's already in your hand. So then you open it while you're waiting for your coffee and you read those rocks to reaffirm that to yourself. Corey, I'm trying to do smaller projects more often instead of hyper-focused massive projects which tire me out too much. Like I'm recording my hymns each week instead of playing all 12 for the month. That is so interesting, Corey, and I think we're on the same wavelength there. I like big projects. I don't really like small things. I do them and I keep up with my responsibilities. But yeah, I'm like you. Big projects fire me up. That's what makes me excited. Yeah, I think we need to find the smaller projects within the big projects. So it depends on the project in question, but maybe the habit is what I do, which is, okay, so if I have a big idea, I have to write it in my notebook. I keep a lot of notebooks, as you may have gathered, but I have to write it in my notebook. Whenever I have lots of big ideas floating around my head, I'll take out my notebook and I have a page that just says possible projects or ideas right now or something like that at the top, and then I write them all down. And when I write them all down and look at them like that, I have to say to myself, well, you can't do them all. So which one are you going to do? Right now it's the teacher turbo boost, but maybe it would be something else, right? So that's almost my habit to cure that, is I've gotten used to just, okay, this is the feeling in my head. Like that's the trigger for me, is my head swimming and I'm getting really excited but kind of in a maybe manic way. Okay, that's my cue. I have to take out my notebook, write this ideas list down and see what comes out of that and maybe put it aside and come back to it tomorrow and see what's what. That's really interesting, Laurie. I have this ridiculous habit where as I'm playing, I'm pressuring myself to memorize in case I'm out and need to play. Where am I even going? Convincing myself I don't need to memorize. I love that, Laurie, because I'm so the opposite. I would have to absolutely force myself to memorize, and I think that comes from the different lesson cultures that we come from. Our exams here are not memorized, nothing is. And so I didn't memorize any music until I was 20. Literally. I didn't have to. And it wasn't valued. However, that's really a shame when you can't play anything from memory ever. Then I got into improv, so that's a whole other side to it. But yeah, I just think that's fascinating. So I think that's a habit of having a little conversation with yourself, isn't it, Laurie? You're playing and you have that thought and you acknowledge it, not to get too zen about it, going back to inbox zen again, but you see that thought and you say to yourself, okay, I'm thinking that I need to memorize this. Let's think about whether I actually need to memorize this for anything. Check my list. No. Okay. Move along, right? But that's almost a habit in and of itself, having that internal conversation, that dialogue, without judging yourself for wanting to memorize it in the first place. Glad that was helpful, Corey. That's my system. My notebook is full of those. And you get to look back at them later. And it's reassuring too, because you know that it's on paper, so there's never that feeling of, but I might forget it if I don't act on this now. I have to do it because it's so good. And then you make all these lists and you look back at them later and you're like, that was not a thing worth prioritizing, and it's not now either. And I need to let it go completely. And sometimes you do. And sometimes you look back at it and go, oh yeah, oh my god, that is cool. And I do have space for it right now. Yeah, exactly. You already have tons of memorized pieces. You don't need to memorize more. That's my development process anyway. Like to keep it simple, so it's just 3 things. You understand the habit before the habit, and that's the thing you focus on developing. You make the habit you're developing as small and easy as possible. Think taking 3 steps outside your door instead of running 10K, or eating 1 extra piece of spinach instead of converting all your meals into salads if you struggle with eating vegetables. And then understanding the reward that's within that. Not trying to come up with an extra reward to put on top of it, but understanding the reward that's in it, and when you experience that, stopping and appreciating it. So, appreciating the feeling of endorphins through your body, appreciating how proud you are of yourself because you can now play that particular piece, or you finished recording that video, or you got to close the last email in your inbox and it's all blank and back at 0, right? The last thing I want us to talk about in the realm of habits is identity. This is where habits really become habits. Up until then, they're conscious efforts, and they're not habits, but they're just habits in development. When you get to the stage of it being your identity, of you identifying as a person who does this thing, that's when the magic kicks in. And you can kind of trick yourself here. So if you are debating whether to eat that spinach that you don't want, I love spinach, by the way, but if you don't, and you're trying to eat more of it, if you're debating whether to eat it, you tell yourself that you are a person that does this, meaning, I am a person who looks after my health, therefore I will do this. The people with the strongest habits, that is how they feel about them. They are that person, therefore they do that thing. The habit, or the action for the habit, going back to Charles Duhigg, that is the evidence that they are that type of person. And then it becomes self-perpetuating. So I am going to do my 10 minutes of meditation because I'm a person who looks after my mental health, is an example. Or I'm going to practice the sonata for 45 minutes because I'm a person who values keeping up my own performance career. Right? Hope that makes sense. But identity is everything. And this goes to so many things. This can be the light bulb again for students. There's a point at which students start to feel like they are musicians. And that's when the question of quitting kind of falls out of the picture, right? Because that's who they are. And for some students that happens earlier, and it's magic, and it drives them to go so much further and make so much faster progress than others do. So the tricking part is you just start telling yourself that you are that type of person, and you start believing it in time. In the beginning it'll feel a bit hokey and a bit silly, but just go with it. Tell yourself the kind of person you are, even if right now it's the type of person you want to be. Tell yourself out loud, or just write it down, or say it out loud in your head. I am the person. I am this person. I am a person who looks after my mental health. I am a person who practices because XYZ. I am a person who values my own professional development. Whatever is relevant to the habit that you're trying to cultivate right now. I hope that helps give you some overview at what it means to have healthy habits, how we find the balance in different areas of our life, and how we then develop those minuscule habits so that we can become the type of person that we want to be, who looks after themselves, because you cannot look after other people until you look after yourself. Okay, moving into our web review section, and let me know if you have any questions about that or anything else in the chat, and I'll come back to them in just a moment. I'm going to look at 2 sites as usual. First one is called Learn at Home. So this is a Wix site. So my first thought right away, I know it costs money to get rid of this banner, but I always think it's worth it. Either changing the platform you're on or paying the fee, whichever one you can do. There are many free platforms that maybe in some ways are slightly less user-friendly than Wix, but those banners really don't look professional. So if you can at all get rid of it, I certainly would try to do that first and foremost. Now, looking at the rest of the site, I like that we have a real student right here. She's smiling and she's got her worms and her fuzzies on the piano, which is great. So we can immediately see that you're a piano teacher and that you teach young students, right? Those are the facts we can see. Now, we have here, are you interested in learning an instrument, want to develop as an experienced player, young or retired, we have something to suit everyone. While that may be true, I'd like to caution you against trying to appeal to everyone in your homepage. You can absolutely teach everyone, but you should present yourself as the perfect teacher for a particular type of student. Now, that doesn't have to be an age, it could be. It could be that you straight away come across as being great for young students. It could be that you come across as a teacher for those who want lessons to be fun and creative rather than serious and classical, like me, right? But you have to come across as something. So I would try to avoid language like this. We teach, you didn't do this, but I'm just taking it to the extreme, which is we teach all ages and stages. We teach for exams. We teach not for exams. We teach this. We teach that. And I honestly do see many marketing materials that say that, and you're kind of holding yourself back before you begin, because while someone looking for a generic teacher will take that on board, like they will get in touch with you if they're just looking for any teacher at all, those aren't the students you want. You want the students who want you. By the way, these are the things we keep in mind in general as we go through these reviews. So if you're following along, keep these in mind and you can learn a lot about your own marketing from this. On our website, we want to have enough texts. We want to have clear calls to action. We want to have consistency in our design. We want to showcase ourselves, so that's the point I'm talking about right now. We want real photos, which we have right here, and we want a simple menu structure. So let's look at some of those other things that we haven't mentioned yet. Do we have enough text? We do have a bit, and I've seen a lot more sparse websites, so well done with that. I'd still like to see a lot more text than that on your page, a lot more description of the different types of things you do and why you do it. The consistency of fonts, I think it would be better to have just all one color here, or maybe one highlighting color, but not so many different colors. Try to cut down, on the different colors a little bit. And then the call to action here, how can we help with your musical journey? There are buttons here, they're just not super strong, so I would rethink maybe if there's a bigger button you can direct people to that's the main place you want to send people. It doesn't have to be where everyone will want to go. You do have a menu, right? So if they are actually looking for woodwind and if they want to learn more about your system there, that's fine. But that doesn't mean you can't have a button that's front and center. That is the action you want more people to take than any other, right? And then the last point was about the menu, and I think you've done a really good job of that, so well done. Lessons, fees and sign up, student zone. Simple, and I understand what each of those items are, so definitely big plus there. So yeah, main thing is, can you get rid of the Wix banner? If possible, try to think of a clear one call to action that you want to send people to, and then a bit more written content would be great. But congratulations on the site and well done putting it together. This one is O'Donnell Voice and Piano Studio, which is great that we have a picture of students right away, which I love. And we can see, that maybe you specialize in teens. That's kind of what comes across just because they happen to all be older students. Now, maybe you don't, but that definitely does give that impression. I love that there are these smiling photos of everyone on Zoom, Kathy. I think that's great. You're ahead of me on that one. I've been meaning to add this kind of stuff to my own site on the lesson pages, because we want to give this positive impression that, you know, we're doing things online, and this, without you even saying anything about COVID, it's pretty clear, right? She's teaching online. But it's just a bunch of smiling students. And yeah, they happen to be on Zoom, but they're just students having a great time, which I love. The one thing we don't have enough of on this homepage, Kathy, is text, okay? So I like the text that you do have, but you just need more of it, and you need to tell me what to do. At the moment, I don't know where I'm supposed to go. If I'm a prospective parent, should I book? Should I go on the waiting list? What do you want me to do next, right? Always be thinking about that next call to action. The menu structure is pretty simple, although in this case, with just 4 menu items, which is great, less is better, but I would actually have them on one side. I think it looks a bit too far apart, but that's me nitpicking, okay? So the lesson page, again, great on the photos. A little bit more text, especially up the top, would be good, but everything else there looks great, so well done. And then a bit about you. Just reading a little bit of that. Yeah, it's good. I would prefer it a little bit more personal to you, but it's definitely pretty friendly and nice writing, so well done on that too, Kathy. And then a contact form. This is all you need, by the way. For everyone watching, you do not need more stuff than this on your site. You absolutely don't. 4 pages is probably plenty. You might have more, but that can be fine. So there's no problem there. My main recommendation for this site is just that call to action and that little bit more text. But everything else is looking really good, so well done. Okay, back into the chat so I can help you all with your questions. I saw a few come in, so let me just double check where that was, and anyone else can add in their questions. This, as I say, is an Ask Me Anything section, so just anything goes that you want to ask me about. Anything is absolutely fine, whether it's on the topic of habits or not. Where was that question? I know I saw it. Chat's been on fire today. I love it. Fire. That sounds extreme. Oh. There it is. That's the one I was looking for. Kathy Lee. How many recitals do I organize in my studio per year? I do 2. So I'm not too extreme, I guess. I don't do that many. I do 2 a year. I find that to be a nice pace for me, Kathy. So I have one that is either in December or January, and then one in May every year. And for perspective, I'm in Ireland, so we're on a September to June academic calendar, right? So that's middle-ish and then almost the end of the year. The May one doesn't move, but the December-January one does move. I aim to do it in December about every 3 years. So 2 years January, then 1 December. Sometimes switching, alternating. The reason I do that is I don't want to do a Christmas recital every year. And if I do one in December, that's what it should be. Like, there's no getting around that. And I do like to do that sometimes, but I don't want it to be every single year. I find that if students learn quite a few Christmas pieces for that December recital, for the Christmas, and it is predominantly Christmas over here. Of course, there could be holiday pieces in general in there too, but it tends to be very Jingle Bells heavy. Anyway, so if they learn that one year, then they have those pieces and they have a Christmas book. Because we learn those, generally I always give students a Christmas book rather than individual recital pieces. And so because they have that book, they can then dive into that the next year, and the pieces are easy enough that they can explore them without their teacher, and maybe for one more year after that. And then they need to up level a bit for their holiday playing. So we definitely encourage them to play during that break every year, but they don't need to do a Christmas recital every year. I feel that gets a bit monotonous, at least for me. That's been my experience. So yeah, and then we alternate with January. So this January one, I think January is a great time for a recital, at least around here, because nothing else happens in January. Like, honestly, nothing. Even without lockdowns, nothing happens. And everything's a bit grey. Like, it's just rain. We had snow the other day, but it's mostly just rain and grey and drizzle. And so having something like this is really a great fit for parents in January. Karen, yes, but it's not March. That's the one that's on this Sunday, so it's actually January. I was thinking that today, that it could have been called a March mashup, but no, it's just called Mashups and Medleys, those are basically synonyms. But anyway, that's what it's called. And it's on this Sunday, so it is our January concert. And yes, I do consider that a concert. It's always got a creative slant when we do it in January. I often do it as the January Jam, and every student will do some improvised element or playing from a lead sheet, that kind of thing. So that's kind of our creative focus concert. I call it the Creativity Showcase. And then May is more traditional, but still not very traditional, because we use pom-poms and have all sorts of fun stuff going on. Yeah, Gary, you're on the same train as me. I find it works well. It's a good balance. I think things like a Halloween recital could be really fun. I just can't see making that work in the calendar, because if you have new students and they've joined in September, I mean, that's tough, isn't it? For them to then have a recital piece ready in October. So I think doing that and doing a dressed up recital, but as Laurie and I have talked about, you can do a dressed up recital any time of year. So we may do that some year at a completely different time, maybe for our January one. Dina, how do I handle copyright? I'd love to incorporate some music history into lessons or into a camp, and I'm wondering if I can play music or even read from some music kids books. Well, if you're talking about music history, most likely it will be out of copyright. You do need to check in your country, because the rules vary by country, and it is not, don't quote me on any of this, it's not based on the country it's based on your country, right, and the composer's country, so you need to check it. But since generally, if it's more than 100 years since they died, that would be a safe buffer, I think, in most areas, then it'll be out. So if you just avoid newer stuff, you can absolutely play it. Now, the arrangement, if you're using arrangements, or the particular edition might be copyrighted, so you can't just photocopy particular editors' editions of things, but the actual music is often out of copyright. And you can look on IMSLP for versions of the score that are also not, that are in the public domain. So hopefully that helps, Dina. But yeah, it's, or even reading from some music kids books. I don't see an issue with that, but you can't take that and then sell it for sure. But if you're reading that at a workshop for your own students, I don't think you need to worry about that. Like, a library can read a book to a group of kids, right? Again, I'm not a lawyer, so I can't answer definitively on that. All right, I think that's all your questions for today. If you have any that you need to, burning questions that you need answered before next week, you can tag me in the Facebook group, or you can, if you're a member, you can find me in the membership, and I'd be happy to talk to you there. Next week, as I said, we're going to be talking about marketing music lessons in 2021 and what to keep in mind with our marketing efforts. In the meantime, I hope you have an amazing, wonderful week ahead, full of enjoyment and fun. and healthy habits. See you next time.